In our portion, the Torah begins to describe the 10 plagues. So first we start with the plague of blood. Moshe produces blood, he changes the river Nile into blood, but the Egyptian sorcerers are able to replicate it. Then there are frogs. They extract frogs out of the river Nile. This is done by Aaron, and they spread over the whole of Egypt. But again, the Egyptian sorcerers are able to replicate it. Then comes the third plague, that of lice. Again, Aaron hits the ground, hits the dust, and suddenly there are millions and millions of lice all over the place. Everyone's as itchy as anything. And this time, the Egyptians cannot replicate it. And they say to Pharaoh that this is Etzba Elokim. Certainly this is the finger of God. We can't do it. There's no natural explanation for this. There's no occult explanation for it. It must be Hashem himself. And the commentators are puzzled. The Talmud is puzzled. Why is it that they could replicate plagues number 1 and 2, but the plague of lice they cannot replicate? And they explain that their power of sorcery and magic, could only take effect on a creature that was a bit bigger in size. But a creature as small as a louse, which is a tiny little creature, smaller than a barley seed, they have no power over it. What is the explanation of this? And I'd like to suggest something as follows, based on a story elsewhere in the Talmud. The Talmud describes the destruction of the Second Temple at the hands of the Romans, and in particular, the Roman leader Titus, the Emperor Titus. He came in, he was a cruel man. He set fire to the temple. He did all types of promiscuous acts, even in the Holy of Holies. He turned his nose up to God, and he was completely against the Jewish religion and the Jewish God. And as he was sailing on the Mediterranean back to Rome, God created this enormous storm that threatened to destroy the ship. And Titus, in his arrogance, stands up and he says, you're no powerful God. You're only the God of the seas and the water. You destroyed Pharaoh, and that's what you're trying to do to me. But come up on the dry land, and let's see, and then we'll have a real fight. So God said, fine. And the storm subsided, and what did God do? He sent a tiny, tiny little insect, a gnat, and it flew into the ear of Titus. And there it stayed, and it nibbled slowly away at his brain until eventually he died in complete agony. What is the moral of the story? You know, to bring great people down, God doesn't have to do incredible miracles. He doesn't have to split the sea. He doesn't have to bring the 10 plagues. He can bring somebody down even with the most minute aspect of creation. That's what God is telling us. I don't need to show off my power in an extreme way. I don't need to be boastful. And specifically when I'm bringing down the boastful, I can bring them down even with the most simple thing. And I think that is the idea behind the lice. Hashem was showing the Egyptians, you think you're so powerful, you think you're so mighty. I can take a tiny little insect, a small little creature, and it can be the downfall of the Egyptians in the same way that was the downfall of the Emperor Titus. That's the nature of the arrogant, always looking for bigger, always looking for better. But God is the ultimate form of power, but also humility. And He can bring down the mighty, even with something completely tiny. I wish you Shabbat Shalom.